American Airlines is one of the main airline companies here in the US, and they have been struggling over the last couple of months. Since its peak in 2018, the stock has been on a downward trajectory, currently down over 80% off of its highs. But here's the crazy part, guys. If you've been holding American Airlines stock for the last 35 years, you would currently be break even on your position. Yes, you would have earned dividend income during this time, but your principal capital has remained the same dollar value, which is quite demotivating after a 35-year hold. So now, of course, this really begs the question, what will American Airlines stock look like in the future? And does it even make sense investing in this company based on its past performance? But more importantly, in my opinion, I think the question we need to ask is, will American Airlines survive 2020? Or will they go bankrupt here in 2020? That's what I want to answer in today's video. We're going to be looking at their financials in depth. So stick around, get comfortable here, because this is going to be one of my more informative videos for you guys. I know you guys appreciate that. And all I'd ask from you is to hit that like button down below and possibly share this video with a friend who is considering investing in airline stocks like American Airlines. So what we really need to do from a very high level here to figure out if this company is worth an investment, or even if this company is going to go bankrupt or not, is to look at their assets, their liabilities, and figure out if this company is going to be able to sustain itself here at least for the next 12 months. Now here's a look at their balance sheet, and since airlines are kind of different from other companies in the different assets that they own, you'll see different line items in here that you may have probably never seen before with other companies. Nonetheless, here's the current asset breakdown, which gives us an idea of how much cash and cash equivalents the company has or will have available in the short term. This breaks down into pure cash, short-term investments, and a couple of other things. But the one thing I want to make note of here is a line item that says aircraft, fuel, spare parts, and supplies. Let's be real, guys. Fuel really holds little to no value these days, especially with what's going on in the world. And spare parts are also more or less useless at this point because none of the other airline companies want to buy additional parts right now that they don't need because most of their fleet is grounded. However, these are already things that American Airlines has paid for, and the way I see it, the value here should be close to zero because we don't know if there will be any buyers for these things here today. So when making an investment decision, I think it's safer for us to assume that there's no value held with these line items. So at the bottom here where it says the total current assets, let's take that $7.175 billion, subtract the $1.772 billion, and this gives us a true current asset balance of $5.403 billion. Now here we can see a breakdown of their non-current assets, and for the most part, it consists of flight equipment and such, because this is, after all, an airlines company. However, the one thing I remove from the calculations is the intangible assets and the goodwill, because these are not things that are actual materialistic and they can't actually physically be sold. So once again, for safety, for an investment, I remove these line items. So now adding all the non-current assets up, less the goodwill and intangibles, plus the current assets, gives us a total value here of $50.658 billion for their total assets versus the $58.58 billion they have posted. This essentially means around $8 billion or so is more or less, in my opinion as an investor, assets that don't really hold any value. Okay, so now we have an understanding of their assets, their current assets, which they have available in the short term, and their long-term assets, and we understand how the business sits financially from this aspect, but we need to now compare to their obligations and their liabilities. So there's a ton of line items here that are not typical to other companies' balances once again. Things like the loyalty program, for example. However, the bottom line is that these are all liabilities that the company owes in the short term, which adds up to $19.213 billion. And adding into this, they have the long-term liabilities as well, which adds up to around $42 billion. So the non-current plus current liabilities gives us a grand total of around $62.2 billion that American Airlines has in things like debt, obligations, and other expenses that eventually, one day, will need to be paid off. Now, if you didn't catch something critical here, I'll repeat it once again. So the current assets and current liabilities really tells us if a company is able to continue funding their operations and stay afloat here and avoid bankruptcy in the next 12 months. If we have a ton of assets and low liabilities, things look good. If we have a ton of liabilities and low assets, things look bad. In American Airlines case, they have $5.4 billion of true current assets, and wait for it, $19.2 billion of current liabilities. This means that they have almost 4 times as many liabilities to pay versus the assets that they have to pay that with. This is deeply concerning. Now, naturally, this outstanding amount of debt that they have here has to come from somewhere, so the company needs to raise more cash by raising more debt. And that's exactly what this company has been doing, guys. They have been pretty much in survival mode, trying to pull money wherever they can. They've been trying to raise capital as much as possible. They've tried to push out debt maturities if possible. They've even drawn down from their lines of credits, and they're even issuing notes here. And really, nothing is off the table here when it comes to them pulling in some cash. Now, from the CARES Act the government put together, American Airlines will be eligible to receive around $5.8 billion, and you can bet that they'll be taking every last penny of this. This will be paid out in installments, and so far they have around $2.9 billion paid out in April, so there's still around $2.9 billion that they will be receiving. But with this new balance, it puts their current cash and assets to $8.3 billion, and once all of this has been received in a couple of months, they'll be at $11.2 billion. This is still a ways off from the $19.2 billion that they will owe in liabilities. So what they have to resort to now is what other companies like the cruise line industries are doing, and that is that they need to put up their assets like their planes as collateral for even more credit. And this will have to add up to around $8 billion more that they'll have to raise. Now, I did keep reading through their balance sheet, and I saw that they have some credit available on a revolving credit, and this isn't used yet either, which adds up to around $3.243 billion. So if they did draw down this credit and subtracted it from the outstanding debt payment, this would bring their outstanding amount to around $4.757 billion. So what I can see them doing most likely is putting up some of their current fleet as collateral here for the outstanding $5 billion or so that they still have to come up with. From their assets, we saw they have around $39.3 billion worth of flight equipment, so they should be able to secure some of this as collateral to raise that additional capital. Now, in my opinion, this will not come cheaply and will probably cost them over 10% in interest if what happened to the cruise line industry is any indication. Nonetheless, though, once looking through their balance sheet and breaking down all of these things, what seemed like a far stretcher at the beginning with their current liabilities and current assets seems a bit better here now after we figure out where they can pull in the remaining cash from. This, of course, means that the future of this business is going to be ridden with debt. Debt is going to be circling them and going to be their main focus for a very long time. But it does mean that this company may survive because of this. Just look at the list of debt here that they currently have, and honestly, guys, this is quite troublesome for me as an investor looking to potentially invest in this business. There's a lot of obligations, and it is going to take American Airlines quite a while to pay all of this down. So the way I see it really is this company is going to operate for the next decade or so, most likely, to pay off its creditors and its obligations, and shareholders are going to be put in the back seat. They're not going to pay out dividends, they're definitely not going to be buying back their shares, and the real focus, in my opinion, will be just on survival. Let's just keep the company going, let's try to earn as much as we can so we can pay down that debt, and then eventually, maybe 10 years from now, we can focus on reinstating dividends and all of these other things once they have their debt manageable once again and the industry has stabilized. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that the stock is at prices that it was at 35 years ago. And who knows, it may be like this again for the next 35 years, except this time around, you're probably not going to see much dividend paid out as well. So it's kind of like a lost investment here, at least for a good chunk of time. There's really nothing compelling about American Airlines to me as a possible investment. Even in good times when the economy is booming, people are flying all over the world, flight travel is at a record high, this company still struggles to pull in some good profits. So even with the revenue being, at record highs, they still are not that profitable. And now with things changed fundamentally in the world, people are not going to be flying as much, at least for the near future, how could you really expect them to pull in a good amount of profit, if any? Like I said, this business is going to be very close, in my opinion, to break even for a very long time, and any profits that they do make are going to be put towards the debt. You got to understand that, and you got to keep that in mind if you are considering investing in American Airlines or most of the other airline stocks as well. So now really I do think that American Airlines will survive and they will not go bankrupt here, at least in the short term, if things get better in the global economy. I think that they have enough collateral here to sustain themselves, and although the debt payments and interest payments are going to be extremely high, it is still something the company needs to do to stay afloat. Now at the same time, it may make more sense to the actual company to file for Chapter 11 restructuring, and that will help them restructure the business and maybe come out even better than if they just kept raising more and more debt. And guys, if that does happen or you see news on that happening, watch out, because shareholders will most likely get wiped out in that scenario. The best case really here is if you're invested in this company or considering investing in this company, you want to see airline travel start to pick up once again, demand start to pick up once again. And if that happens and we continue on that path, then things should be okay for this business. So guys, to me, this is not an investment right now, and I can say with 100% certainty, I will not be buying any shares of American Airlines in the near future. This company really needs to prioritize shareholders at some point, but they can't do that right now with all of their debt. So as a shareholder, it doesn't make sense to me to hold this stock. I'm typically fine with holding a company when I can see them not focus on shareholders for the next couple of years, but in say the next 5 to 10 years, I can make a good amount of money on this investment. I'm okay with that. And some companies that I think will follow that route will be companies like Boeing and most likely Carnival. But when I look at these airline companies and I see how much money they earn in good times and the amount of debt that they have, the risk to reward, it just does not make any sense to me. And that's why I will not be investing in American Airlines. Guys, let me know in the comment section down below whether you agree or disagree with me, whether you're an investor in this stock, or if you want to see another video on, say, Delta Airlines stock. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, guys, but remember to drop a like down below if you enjoyed this. Share this video with a friend, because I know a lot of you guys are looking at airline stocks, and I hope this video provides some value. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to invest positively, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.